Most people believe they understand themselves. They think their actions come from clear choices and logical reasons. If they get angry, there must be a reason. If they feel anxious, something stressful must be happening. If they repeat the same mistakes, they assume they simply lack discipline or willpower. Sigmund Freud challenged that belief. He argued that much of human behavior is driven by forces outside our awareness. In other words, the mind is not a single voice. It is a system, often in conflict with itself. This idea would permanently change psychology.
Freud was born in 1856 in Moravia, which was part of the Austrian Empire at the time. When he was young, his family moved to Vienna. It was there that Freud trained as a medical doctor and later developed his psychological theories. Early in his career, he studied the nervous system and believed mental problems could be explained through biology alone. That belief changed when Freud began treating patients who suffered from real pain, fear, and emotional distress, even though medical tests showed nothing physically wrong. These people were not pretending. Their symptoms were real, but their cause could not be found in the body. Freud began to suspect that the source of the problem was psychological rather than physical. This led to Freud's most important contribution, the idea of the unconscious mind. Freud believed that much of our mental life exists outside conscious awareness. Thoughts, memories, fears, and desires can be pushed out of consciousness because they feel painful, threatening, or unacceptable. Freud called this process repression. Even when hidden, these thoughts do not disappear. They continue to influence behavior, emotions, and decisions.
This explains why people often act in ways they do not fully understand. Someone may overreact to a small comment, feel guilt without knowing why, or repeat unhealthy relationship patterns. Freud believed these behaviors were not random, they were the result of unconscious conflict. To explain this conflict, Freud developed a simple but powerful model of the mind made up of three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. These are not physical parts of the brain, but roles the mind plays.
The id is the impulsive part of the mind. It seeks pleasure and comfort immediately. It does not care about rules, consequences, or long-term outcomes. Hunger, anger, desire, jealousy, and frustration come from the id. The id speaks in simple demands, such as, "I want this now," or "I don't care, just do it." The superego is the judging part of the mind. It represents rules, morals, and expectations learned from parents, teachers, and society. The superego evaluates behavior and creates feelings of guilt, shame, or pride. It speaks in pressure, using phrases like, "You shouldn't feel that," or "You should know better." The ego is the mediator. Its job is to deal with reality. The ego tries to satisfy the id without violating the rules of the superego or causing real-world damage. When people feel stressed, anxious, or torn inside, Freud believed it was often because the ego was struggling to manage these competing forces.
Freud believed mental health was not about eliminating desire or judgment, but about understanding and balancing them. Freud also believed that many of these inner conflicts begin in childhood. Early experiences shape how people understand love, safety, authority, and rejection. A child may not remember these experiences clearly, but the emotional patterns remain. As adults, people often repeat these patterns without realizing where they came from. Freud argued that childhood does not determine destiny, but it strongly influences emotional habits. To protect itself from emotional pain, the mind uses defense mechanisms. These are automatic strategies that reduce anxiety. Examples include denial, rationalization, projection, and avoidance. Freud believed defense mechanisms are normal and necessary, even though they can sometimes create problems later in life. They are the mind's way of keeping emotional balance. Freud also introduced a method of therapy called free association. Patients were encouraged to say whatever came to mind without filtering or censoring their thoughts.
Freud believed this allowed unconscious material to surface. Variations of free association are still used by therapists today, making it one of Freud's most lasting practical contributions. Another key concept Freud introduced was transference. He observed that patients often transferred feelings from important people in their past, such as parents, onto the therapist. These emotional reactions revealed unresolved conflicts and repeating relationship patterns. Transference remains an important concept in modern therapy.
Freud became widely known after publishing his book, The Interpretation of Dreams. In this work, he argued that dreams are not meaningless images, but symbolic expressions of unconscious thoughts and desires. Freud believed dreams allow the unconscious mind to communicate in disguised form. Although many of his interpretations are debated today, the book helped establish dreams as a serious psychological subject. Freud's ideas were controversial even during his lifetime. Many criticized his methods and conclusions, and modern psychology does not accept all of his theories. However, his influence remains strong. Freud changed how people think about emotional suffering. He showed that behavior has meaning, that inner conflict is normal, and that understanding patterns can lead to change.
Freud's greatest legacy is not that he provided all the answers, but that he taught people to look beneath the surface. He showed that the human mind is complex, layered, and often hidden from itself. By bringing attention to the unconscious, Freud permanently changed how we understand human behavior and why we do the things we do. This is Ultra Simplified. If you enjoy big ideas made clear, consider subscribing.